Hi, everybody, and welcome. My name is Alina George, and I am a project specialist in the Federal Aviation Administration, specifically in the UAS Integration Office. I work primarily in outreach and engagement, and we're here tonight as part of Drone Safety Awareness Week. This is an annual week-long outreach campaign that is led by the FAA to help talk to the public about drone safety. Tonight, we've got episode 3, I guess you can call it, of Droning On After Dark, which is a different side of Drone Safety Awareness Week. Because this year we are focusing on recreational flyers, we wanted to make sure that we've reached out to all of those folks who have jobs during the day and may not have the time to participate in the middle of the afternoon. So each of these events have been about a different section of the recreational community. And tonight, I'm really excited. We are going to be talking about RC aircraft and modeling. So I'm thrilled to welcome our panel tonight. We've got Amelia Arroyo. She is a student at CSU, and I know I'm going to mess this up. She is part of a modeling club in a location called Menifee. Okay, I got it. We also have Josh Bixler here tonight from FliteTest, as well as Matt Rudrick, yes, from AMA, and Tyler Dobbs, also from AMA. So I'm going to kick things off with the panelists. Let's go ahead and introduce yourselves. Well, we'll go in the order that I just went. So Amelia, you're up.
All right, so as you guys can see, my name is Amelia. I am a biochemistry major at California State University, San Marcos, and I am an AMA member. And I primarily fly in the Menifee Valley Flyers Club, as you guys can probably see in my background. And sometimes I like to check out other clubs in the state as well. And okay, that's basically about me.
Awesome. Josh, you're up.
Hello, friends. My name is Josh. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wonderful. My name is Josh. I am the president of FliteTest. FliteTest has been around for about 10 years. We're most known for our YouTube channel, which we have just under 2 million subscribers. But along with that, we put out educational content that's all family friendly, focusing on getting people not only to learn how to fly, but how to build and how to make it really a lifestyle. Along with that, we also do an amazing FT STEM program that's K through 12. We currently have actively 3,000 students and 700 teachers enroll all over the nation and even in other countries. And we really just focus on using model aviation and aviation in general as a tool to get people into a lifestyle of flight so they can make their passion their profession.
Love that. Thank you so much for being here, Josh.
Thank you.
Matt, let's go with you next.
Yeah, my name is Matt. I'm the technical communications lead at the Academy of Model Aeronautics, which really is just a fancy way to say I help communicate the messages that the organization needs to get out to its members, working with our creative team and our communications department. And part of that is I host a podcast, a weekly podcast, and our video news program called AMA Air that goes out twice a month. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Tyler, last but not least.
Thank you. Tyler Dobbs. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for the Academy of Model Aeronautics. I've been around AMA for about 20 years. And if you're not familiar with our organization, we were founded in 1936. We currently have about 180,000 members across the country and represent and manage about 2,500 flying sites. Our focus is FliteTest, and Josh mentioned education. We also have a strong educational focus, as well as competition and advocacy.
Thank you. So I'm really excited about the conversation today because I don't actually know a whole lot about RC. This has kind of been the theme for the week. I'm learning so much. And I want to start off just a tiny bit off topic. Did anybody watch the launch that just happened like half an hour ago? It was Inspiration 4. Okay.
Yeah. Matter of fact, our team member Wes is currently in. He was able to go down and have one of the VIP spots, so he got to witness that firsthand.
That's
And
incredible.
He is going nuts.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
So my Uncle Eddie actually texted me this evening. He was like, "Are you watching the launch?" I'm like, "There's a launch? I should know this, I guess." So I didn't realize it, but I watched it and it was incredible. And for whatever reason, I got a little teary-eyed, just watching that. And I remember like building rockets with my dad. The little ones that you put together that kind of look like a toilet paper roll, and you like put the parachute in it and light it up, and there it goes. You all know what I'm talking about,
sure.
right?
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah. When I was younger, I used to do those with my father as well. And the one that I built, I was so excited to fly it. It went into a lake. So that's my memory of it.
Oh no.
But hey, that's part of the hobby.
all
You
part of it.
live and you laugh.
Yeah, one of the most beautiful parts. I don't remember every successful flight with my father, but I do remember picking up the pieces afterwards, and that's oftentimes where you get the most encouragement, the most life lessons, and also the greatest impact. We always at FliteTest call it shoulder time, and you can never get enough of that.
I love that.
Yeah.
So since we're talking about how we kind of got started, sorry. I just saw a comment from Alex Suarez that said, "I thought this was a drone live stream, not a rocket live stream." I'm getting there, Alex. We're working on it. So how did you all start? And they're for you, take it in whatever order you want. But how did you get into aviation? Like why airplanes?
I want to hear Elena's story because I got a little glimpse of it. I think we have a lot of commonality here.
My story or Amelia's?
Amelia's.
Oh.
Sorry, Amelia.
Oh, let's put it this way. My dad actually named me after Amelia Earhart because he's into aviation. It was that or Bernadette, and my mom did not want Bernadette, so I'm Amelia now. And I've always, like, up until I was around 5, I would look at my dad building, these sticks become these aircraft. Oh, that's cool. And I was at a raffle at some restaurant and I got my little ticket, and turns out I won a little Prairie Bird rubber band powered airplane. And it was a domino effect from there. I fell in love with the hobby and I'm still into it to this day, all because of a little Prairie Bird rubber band power. So
Love it.
that's how I got into it.
I think we hear that story so many times. Mine wasn't through my father, but a close friend who invited me over, and he was a modeler and actually built them, and invited me one day. And when I showed up, he had built me my own very first airplane, and gave me stick time. And every week we would schedule a couple days for that week to go over and to his house and learn to fly. And from that point forward, obviously that turned into a career for me. And now I get to travel the country and go to various events and flying sites and hear a similar story over and over. So,
and I think that's going to be the common theme with everybody is it's an amazing thing how model aviation is truly a relational activity. My father got me into the hobby. We grew up in a little tiny airport, and I got to fly full scale with them, general aviation out of the backyard. But what really changed my life was when we had to move the airplane to a different field because frankly, it's getting a little too sketchy. And we started flying radio controlled airplanes again. And that's where we'd proceed to build to fly. And I could turn a plane into a kit in 15 seconds. And we'd spend 2 hours climbing trees and getting every little piece back together to put it back together. And it's amazing. As I said earlier, like that recreate or that social time of getting encouraged, of learning like what went wrong. That's what sparked that love of flight. And that's also what sparked the love of engineering. And as time went on, that's also what we want to repeat and continue at FliteTest to make sure that it's a tool for other people to connect as well.
I got to say, I'm probably going to be the odd man out here. I'm probably the most recent person to come into the hobby. I didn't start in the hobby until about 6 years ago. I spent about 20 years of my professional life as a video production person and as a marketing person. And I came to work at the AMA. Funny enough, I grew up 5 minutes away from AMA headquarters, and I never, you always look far away from where you live for work and for hobbies and things of that nature. And I didn't really know much about what the AMA was or what model aviation was. And there was a job that opened up, so I came to work at the AMA. And once that happened, like, I'll be honest, when I first started, like, the only connection I had was like, oh, cool, they have those cameras that you can put on drones and you can get some really cool aerial shots, because that's the background that I had. But I can't emphasize this enough. It was I maybe a week or two into the start of my employment here where I was introduced to fixed wings and to helicopters and just kind of what this world of modeling really is. And I was just captivated immediately. And, now I'm flying all sorts of different things, sailplanes, warbirds, scale stuff. It's whatever I can get my hands on, I'm excited to fly it. And
I see some stuff on the wall behind you.
I do. I've got a P-51 back there. I've got a couple of FPV Racing drones back there. There's not an aspect of aero modeling that I've found that I don't enjoy, or at least have some sort of interest in. It's all just so fascinating to me. It's something I never thought I would be fascinated by. I didn't grow up as like an aviation person necessarily, but I've certainly become one. And I think most people, are that way. They get a taste of it, and it's so easy to fall down that rabbit hole. And I've talked to so many people like that.
I love that. And Josh, we've had a couple of conversations before.
Yeah.
And you really talk about how, what you do with FliteTest is you try and bring the whole family into aviation. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, thank you. The hobby is not something that you use to separate or to escape. The hobby is something you use to connect. And what is amazing is when you can use this hobby and celebrate it not as the end all be all, but as a tool to connect people relationally and also for encouragement to make those memories. With FliteTest, what we do is we don't just design an airplane. We have over 70 different airplanes that we've designed, and we do one almost every month now. But what we do is we design an experience. It's something that causes you to sit around a building table and you put it together in 2 or 3 hours. Then you go out into the field and you fly it. Maybe you crash. Maybe you laugh a lot while you're doing it too. But then you go back to that build table, you put it back together, and you think about, what went wrong, what went right, and then you do it all over again. You become a better builder, a better pilot. Now, with kids specifically, parents need to be empowered with a tool, with an activity they can do where they can engage and encourage their kids. This is just an awesome opportunity, because not only can you encourage your kids, you can have fun with them, you can do it along with them, and you have that ability then to pick up the pieces in life and to make it a repeatable experience, and then usher them into where they fall in love with flight, they fall in love with the engineering, and then you can give them a path at a very young age. It makes things a lot easier as they grow up and they go to school and say, why do I need to learn math? Why do I need to learn technical writing? Why do I need to learn physics? They have a why now, and they have a hunger in their heart to complete that. So with FliteTest, everything we look at with aviation, the plane is not special. It's what you do with the plane that makes it special. And even I'm a full-scale pilot as well too. I fly paramotors, I fly FAR 103, and I'm also getting my ratings now in a little 2-seater Ronca. And it's all the same. It is all the same, and it's all an amazing avenue, because one thing sparks on a passion to the other thing. Lack of better terms, aviation and recreational model activity has a very long runway, and it can go from a very young child all the way up through. Now, every year we have an event called FliteFest, and that's not an event where people just bring out their toys, fly them, crash, and go home sad. They come out with just pieces and parts or electronics, and there's these build tents, and they learn to fly. They put them up in demolition derbies, which we call combats, and then they go right back in the tent and they do it again. And we can take someone from knowing nothing about the hobby, and we can teach them how to build, how to fly, how to have fun with the hobby, and also all the safety that's needed to do it properly.
Yeah, I agree, Josh. Sparking that interest in youth is critical. When I think about our AMA community, and I think about Matt Keenan with NASA, who helped, or designed the helicopter that NASA sent to Mars, Ingenuity. And I think about Mason Hutchison, who helped design Stratolaunch, and Neil Armstrong, obviously. All of them AMA members, and all of them got their start by picking up a model airplane as a child, and sparking that interest. So
wouldn't it be
never
nice
know what that kid's going to do 20, 30 years
Well,
from that first flight.
I wish we could peel back one layer different and honestly, like, learn about their families, because, behind every one of those people was an amazing parent that most likely encouraged them, or a friend that encouraged them. Those people are heroes too, because they helped ignite and encourage through that. It's pretty incredible. I love to see, hopefully people view this hobby as a whole family, a whole lifestyle, because even the people on the ground are the ones that create that culture as well too.
I want to take that thread, and Amelia, I'm going to put the spotlight back on you here. You started flying when you were really young.
Yes.
How old are you now?
So I am now 23 years old.
Okay, and you're still flying.
Yes. I am flying a little bit less due to college, but either way, my interest and my passion for the hobby is still there. And I just go on the field whenever I can and practice on the simulator sometimes online. That
like a
helps
flight
too.
simulator?
Yes. There are, whether you get the newest model or the oldest model, you can have a control on your hand and look at a screen, and that's how you fly. And obviously, sometimes that won't take into account your peripheral vision, but it does give you the muscle memory. And that's how I keep some of mine, although I'm still nervous in real life.
That's really neat. And so we're talking a lot about families here. Does your family fly with you? And I guess this is really a question for all of you, right? Do your families fly with you? And do you find that you have a lot of friends who are also pilots of one form or another?
So with me, I fly with my dad, and we help keep each other's backs. If he forgets something, I remind him, and vice versa. And I actually do have a friend from high school that kind of got into the hobby as well. And I know that his dad does drones. And we were actually in a science Olympiad club together, which encourages students to pursue anything in STEM. And with that came an event called Wright Stuff, as in Wright Brothers.
That's
and we had
more like the movie.
Who knows? But we actually did have to build a rubber band powered airplane, but it had to have certain dimensions to make it less efficient. And we actually won the event together. And to this day, he's still into the hobby, and he's currently in college to become an engineer. And I'm wondering, did that spark his interest? So that kind of goes back to what Josh said. So that's a real life example.
That's awesome. Can you talk to me a little bit more about what is this rubber band powered airplane?
So
how does this work?
Basically, the motor is a rubber band that you turn sometimes hundreds of times, and it's connected to a propeller onto a metal hook. And so obviously, once you release that rubber band, it spins the propeller, and that thing will fly for who knows how long, depending on how you built it. But some can last for like half an hour, depending on how you build it. It's amazing. Wow. Yeah.
There's some indoor, we call them indoor free flight competitions that are held all over the world. I mean, some really amazing competitions. And Amelia is absolutely right. These guys have got it down to an exact science where these aircraft weigh probably a gram or two. I mean, we're talking incredibly, lighter than air aircraft practically, that are powered by rubber bands, and they will be up there for a half hour easily. There's actually a really great documentary out there I would encourage folks to go check out called Float, that was produced 2 or 3 years ago maybe, and it's all about this rubber band indoor free flight competitions that are held all over the world. It's fascinating to watch. It really is.
That's really neat. And so I guess for me, for somebody who has not really been involved in a lot of this, any of this, except for the rockets. Sorry, Alex. What is a good way to get started? Right? Is it the little rubber band planes, or is it finding a community? Like, how do I get into this?
Yeah.
Well, obviously, we feel that finding a community and becoming a part of that is one of the best and quickest ways to gain the knowledge that you need to fly, and to get some hands-on experience in a safe environment that's already been usually predetermined. So as I mentioned, AMA has about 2,500 flying sites across the country. And many people will seek out to be a member of that club that allows them to do things what we call like buddy boxing, which means that you're controlling the aircraft, but there's someone who is your backup if things go the way that they should. And so they can kind of take over that control and help you safely land it. But that gives you hands-on experience, especially for youth or a newcomer to the hobby, without risking the financial burden. As Josh mentioned, sometimes you spend your evenings putting airplanes back together. And while you do learn a lot doing that, sometimes it can be a financial strain on you.
Yeah.
So reaching out to someone who can assist you with that through the modeling community is always a great option.
Tyler brings up a great point. Obviously expense has a lot to do with it. We definitely take a different approach to that, because not everyone, even though there's 2,300 sites around, not everyone is blessed to be close enough or to know where to go. So we have this thing called the internet, and we put out, these educational videos, these DIY videos. And to kind of answer that problem with cost is we basically design and plan out a common, simple, everyday material. So it used to be that if you wanted to get into the hobby, you'd have a couple $100 in radio, you'd have $100 in electronics, you'd have an airplane that could cost, anywhere from $100 to $200. By the time you get into that, you're too scared to get up in the air. What we did with FliteTest is we designed these airplanes, and we put out free plans for many of them. And we showed how you could go to the dollar store. You could pick up $3 of foam. You could pick up some barbecue skewers, some rubber bands, and you could build an airplane, not only about an evening, 2-3 hours, but the thing would fly amazing. And it has all the same principles as those planes that cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars. But then, and more importantly, is we could connect them with a community. And as I said earlier, we have 1.9 million people all across the world, and they're the friendliest people you've ever met. They are here to help people get into the hobby, and they encourage people. Just like, not everyone can find someone easily, a whole family can kind of get online, they can build their planes together, and then they can network with each other. And what we've been doing is finding those champions and those people. And we call them Care Bears. Because they're just, typically in the internet, you don't get that friendly mentality. And then we do online video courses. We have a beginner's course that teaches you about safety. And the best thing about it is you can watch that when the weather's rainy, and you can learn about that over and over and over again. If you need a refresher, it's a resource you can always go back to. And that gives people the ability to always have that reinforced. And then when they're done building and they're ready for that next experience, they're just one design away. So we're not just having them come out, have to overcome those hurdles of maybe joining a club, driving that location, but they're also able to just simply build where they're comfortable at, meet people. And then we have these big events where people can come together. And a lot of times it's really cool. They call them neighbors, and they're not talking about neighbors in a physical sense. They're talking about the person across the table from them building along with them. Aww. So it's like a big family reunion. It's pretty cool. It's an intimidating thing, expense, learning how to engage the airport etiquette. When you have the ability to have that resource in the comfort of your own home and to be able to review that, all those anxieties go away, and there's just nothing but left but excitement and something to achieve.
Love that. So you've touched on a couple of things that I want to bring back up. One of them is, like in many ways, RC is way more accessible than actually learning how to fly an airplane. Yeah. Right. It's less cost prohibitive. You don't have to have quite as many hours in an airplane. But, historically, like aviation has been not terribly inclusive. What steps are you all doing, and what steps can be taken to make this a more inclusive community?
That's a great question. one thing
for all of you.
Yeah. Okay. I've been talking a lot. If anyone wants to take it first, feel free to. But what we really focus on is if you make it around an activity, again, I'm going to say that family word, that the whole family can enjoy together. There's reinforcement there. A lot of times if you have strangers, those strangers have just met, there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of unknowns. But if you can get the whole family to do it, automatically it's a full buy-in. It's a full way to have that person come out as a group. They're comfortable because they're around people they know and they love, and then they meet more people. I think the quicker you can make it social, the better. The other thing that you can do also is bring it into schools. It is absolutely amazing when you bring aviation-based STEM into schools, because little Johnny, little Nancy, they get passionate about, they get excited, they come home to that, and then suddenly their parents are like, holy cow, they're on fire for this. Well, now there's an activity that the kids can bring home that the parents can engage in. I can't think of many activities that are like that go from school to home, that suddenly is an open door for people to be able to join in the fun. And that just reinforces it. So, Elena, you know me, in every roundtable we've been in, how much I bring up mentorship, families, relational, because no one knows their kids and no one knows each other better than the family. And when you do that, it creates an automatic friendlier environment. The bureaucracy is gone, the stress is gone. And as Amelia said, like you and your dad have each other's back. You guys encourage and work together. I'm not fortunate enough to have my dad anymore, but now I get to do what my dad did to shape my life with my own kids. And Elena, you asked an earlier question about, do you get to fly with your family? I'm extraordinarily blessed. Not only do I get to fly with both my kids, Michael's now 17, Noah's 19, but they also work here at FliteTest. So my wife works at FliteTest, my two kids work at FliteTest, I work at FliteTest. It is a whole family thing that started when they were, in elementary school. It's a beautiful thing how that can stitch together a family and how it can keep them together. My oldest is about to get married, and we still do it all the time. Well, thank you. And then I'm getting personal, but the point is it's something that it's not a chapter that comes and goes all the time, especially if you use it as a tool to build that relationship.
Yeah. I feel now like I need to take my dad out flying.
You do.
We haven't done that in a while. My dad's an engineer, and I got, a love of science fiction from my dad, which is why I'm here, why I love drones, why I love, I don't know. The drones feel like science fiction, honestly. But it's why I'm here. So I think, bringing that back to him would be really neat. And for Tyler and Matt, what do you see AMA doing as far as like increasing inclusivity and making sure that we're opening the hobby to, well, everybody?
Yeah, and I think, oh, go ahead, Matt.
Go ahead. No, Tyler, you take it. I'll come in after you.
I think that's something that we certainly, the industry as a whole has struggled with, especially when a new technology is introduced, and that's nothing new. We saw that with helicopters back in the 70s. We saw it with arc flyers 15 years ago, turbine jets, the list goes on. And now we look back and that group just continues to grow. And in 10 years or 15, we'll be talking about a new platform. So acceptance for the new multi-rotor drone, I'll say new, but obviously it's been around for a while now. There's been some contention there that one group pushes back against the other and so on and so forth. But that's something that I think the industry as a whole is working to change. And I think that the commercial industry is trying to get public acceptance, just like what the groups like AMA and FliteTest and others are saying, hey, look, this is just a new technology. It's still the same guy or girl that's out there enjoying aviation, enjoying the hobby, and wanting to get up in the air and fly. So let's bring them into the community. Let's have your clubs, your groups, your family, whatever you want to call them, help this person learn to fly, help this person transition to the next stage of the hobby.
Yeah, that's you bring up a really good point. From my side, doing some research, I have read that there's a little bit of friction between the like drone community and the modelers community. Do any of you kind of want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak a little bit to that. I think, like Tyler said, when helicopters came in the 70s, there was a very similar kind of friction. When things moved over to 2.4 gigahertz on the control channels, there was a little bit of friction there. The park flyers as well. Just in the short time I've been in the hobby, I've seen a shift. And because it started out when I first came in, things were kind of contentious between what we would call the traditional modelers versus the some of the new technology modelers, the drone pilots. And that's really, I think that gap has closed a lot over the last couple of years. And a lot of that has to do with educating folks in what goes into some of these technologies, because not everything is like a DJI autonomous camera drone. There are so many other aspects to these new technologies. Some of the drones you see on my wall back here, and you guys talked about them over the last couple of nights on this show, where it's not, you're not just buying stuff off a shelf. You're actually building and putting these things together, and there's a lot of knowledge that has to be acquired to understand how these aircraft work. And there's a lot of challenging nights on a simulator trying to be able to figure out how to fly these things appropriately, because they don't fly themselves. And that education process, educating the folks that they're going to fly traditional and they don't want to have anything to do with the new stuff, that's that's okay. But if they knew that, well, you know what, there's actually some really good lessons to be learned from this new technology, you'd be surprised how accepting they can be. And honestly, the reverse of that is true as well. I mentioned earlier my own personal story where I thought all I wanted to do was fly these camera platforms. And then I was introduced to this whole world of air modeling that I didn't really know existed. And I became just obsessed with it. And one of my favorite things to fly now is it's called a Radian. It's a sailplane, and it's the most relaxing form or the most relaxing time I could spend in a calm evening is to go take that Radian out at the flying field and just relax and watch it kind of carve through the sky. And it's so much fun, and it's something that 7 years ago I would have never thought possible. But once it's like that gateway. You come in, you say, oh, there's all these other things I could be doing. Let's try all of them. And suddenly you're just hooked. It's all
sounds like there's a lot of crossover here.
Yeah.
For sure.
Matt brings up an amazing point. Basically, I think the way that you keep that divide from happening is if it flies, you celebrate it. That's whether it's a rubber band powered airplane all the way up to a race quad. One thing that we do with FliteTest, and we haven't been around for a long time, we've been around 10 years, but we just started with that notion is if it flies, it's awesome. And when we have our FliteFest events, you can actually, even in a small 60-acre field filled with 7,000 people, you can have a spot for drone racing. You can have a spot for general aviation. You can have a spot for newbie pilots. You can have a spot for helicopters, and then so on. And just like when you go to Disney World and you go to Epcot and you travel around and you see the flavor and the taste and the experience of every single part of Epcot, you can actually do that in an event. And it does the exact opposite of build contention. It crosses over like what Matt was talking about. You have the ability to say like, holy cow, those race quads are pretty cool. Or holy cow, that guy's flying wings over there. And another really cool thing about all the different diversity within the hobby is everyone's different. Everyone has a different passion. Boy, girl, young, old has a different passion. You can say, and this is what we did with our training programs. You go up to a young child and it's like, what do you like? I like video games. Okay, tell me about what kind of video game you like. Well, I like first person, race games. Okay, cool. Put on these goggles and try this out. And you got them hooked. Another person says, well, I like strategy and I like chess and I like this. Okay, here's a Radian, here's a sailplane, and you got to find invisible lift and you got to keep your airplane up without a motor. You got them hooked. Another person's competitive. Well, here's a race wing. Another person just loves the history of World War II. And it's like, let's build a scale airplane together and you can make history come to life. You can use planes as a tool to connect, but also to hook that person into the hobby and pull it. And I think it's really important to do that. I see in the chat here, someone brought up a really good question that I think ties both the FliteTest and AMA. I don't want to hijack this. Am I allowed to read it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I this is new to me here. It's how can the CBOs like FTCA, which is the FliteTest Community Association, and AMA work together to promote and then protect the future of the hobby? I am really happy someone asked about that question, because AMA and FliteTest is not two sides of the coin. They're not two options. We both have been gifted with different skill sets that meet different needs for different people. And I think one of the coolest things about that is where AMA has this amazing history of club fields and 88 years now, Tyler? How many years?
Close 36, so not quite, but
it's 36 years. I thought you guys started.
No,
1936.
1936. Okay.
Yeah.
Who can do math? I can't do math that quickly.
I thought it was 80.
Getting to the mid 80s.
There you go. Okay. It's a long time, and it's special, and it should be celebrated. And there's also a lot of people with a lot of wisdom there. With FliteTest, where we really started, was a grassroots effort all through YouTube, all through the internet. And it grew up not from the traditional model sense. And we have programs that are used to make pilots and then also guide people to career paths, where AMA has this amazing history and locations. What I see personally, and I'm kind of springing this, is a future where the FTCA and our FliteTest community and the AMA can work together to be able to bring these people and these programs to different locations and kind of cross-pollinate, where at the end of the day, we have STEM programs. Where are those kids going to go with their parents? Because the parents can't go to the school and fly necessarily. Well, what if FliteTest and the FTCA helps connect with the AMA to be able to bring FT groups and clubs together? That's kind of how I see a vision. That's kind of what I hope to see in the future. I see someone just did math. By the way, Tyler, it's 85 years.
85 years.
85 years. Okay, I gave you extra 3. You deserve it. But that's what I'd really like to see, is everybody has a different strength. Everyone has a different ability. We're going to be having F3 FliteTest flight fields as well. But why reinvent the wheel when you have programs on one side and then you also have locations on the other? The important thing at the end of the day is that the hobby is protected and that the hobby grows and that we give people the tools. CBOs are not here to be served. They're here to serve others based on the skills and what they're best at. And I think that was a really great question that was posted.
Yeah, I think that's really great. Working together is something that has come up a lot in the past droning-ons and in this one, right? So coming together for the hobby, for aviation, and for each other, right? Like Josh and Tyler and Matt, all of you have mentioned mentorship and community. And I think, one thing that the FAA is really, really taking away from this, me being the FAA here in this instance, is that there are huge communities behind all of these hobbies. But this is a lifestyle for people, and aviation is not just something, right, like that you need to learn how to fly a Cessna or a 747 or whatever. You don't have to fly a big airplane to partake in aviation. I know for myself, aviation is very inspirational. So I live in DC. So I'm right by 40 minutes-ish driving away from Udvar-Hazy, which is the big Air and Space Museum that has, it's a huge hangar, essentially. And they had this really great exhibit a couple of weeks ago that I went to that was planes, that private planes that people had flown in. And it was just incredible to see all of them and to talk with people in aviation, but also to see a lot of the historic planes that have been built. I mean, if you haven't been to this museum, you should go. It's incredible. And right in the middle of it, as you come down the stairs, is the SR-71, which is beautiful. It's so cool. But, I think that there's a lot to love about aviation in general. I saw a lot of kids there, which was really neat. Things that I didn't see were like, I don't know, nobody had models out there. And I know that the focus, I guess, must have been like the actual airplanes. But I feel like that could have been a really good opportunity to talk about how you can get into aviation. And I'm gonna put the spotlight back on Amelia and So as the youngest of us here, when you go out and fly, like, do you see other people your age? Generally?
I see kids, I see people sometimes my age, older people. So kind of going back to how diverse it is, it's just any age. And, you know, Matt was saying earlier, he started late, but I like to say it is never too late to start. You can start when you're 5, you can start when you're 55 or 85 or whenever. I see people of all ages in my field, and I'm sure that's how it is in other places as well, because it's incredible how the age range of this hobby is huge. It just goes from the youngest to the oldest, and that's what I love about it.
That's great.
Yeah, we just had a flying event here at AMA headquarters back in July, where I met a gentleman who he came up to me, and he's a Vietnam War veteran and wanted to talk to me a little bit. He'd seen me on some of our broadcasts from the AMA social media channels, and he had only been flying for, I think he said, about 3 years at that point, and he was in his late 80s. And that's, Amelia, what you just said is exactly what I said to him. I said, it's never too late to start. And he is a perfect example of it. And he came out and had just an amazing time. And I see folks of that age. I see folks that, you know, they take their first solo flight at 4 years old. That is not an exaggeration. 4 years old, I saw somebody take their first solo flight.
That's precious.
Those stories are a dime a dozen in this hobby, and it's one that I hope, you know, doing, you know, broadcasts like this help get that word out, that this hobby has so many different types of people from all different backgrounds and all different ages. It's like you said, it's inspiring. It really is.
Love it.
And kind of dovetail on that, we're talking about diversity. We're talking about how it helps people individually. I guess if I could talk directly to the FAA, which I think we're doing right now, is
let's do it.
It's a solution provider too. There is a amazing need right now for future pilots, but not only future pilots, future air traffic control, future aircraft engineers, future maintenance crew. People have a certain bent, and when they learn that they can you know, have this lifestyle and they want to make it their profession, that helps the FAA. Recreational model activity, recreational flight is the tool that you can use that's approachable, that's repeatable. I love it when kids get their first ride in a real aircraft. But once that ride is done, what are you going to give them to keep that spark alive? And what activity? And also, what tool do you give the parents? How do you keep seeding that? If you plant a seed in soil, it'll grow a little bit, but you got to keep watering it. And I really love what model aviation does for people on a recreational level, because it's that fix, it's that inspiration that kind of keeps them going. And if I was going to be blunt, you make this too difficult to get in, you make this too difficult to approach, it is inversely effective in a good way to the FAA, but also our future as a country when it comes to, you know, pilots, when it comes to engineers. We don't want to lose that, and we definitely don't want to have the disadvantage of not having future pilots, future maintenance, future engineers in our life.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I had something in my head. Just give me 1 second. This is going to come back.
Take your time.
I'll let you think on that, and I'll add. I saw where the Department of Labor just added UAS to the workforce, so that was promising to see and good news. You know, we obviously AMA we continuously advocate for the hobby and want to lower that threshold as much as possible. And with the remote ID and FAA reauthorization of 2018, that obviously does place what we feel are certainly some unnecessary burdens. And, you know, we were talking about being inclusive and bringing everybody in. And I can see where, you know, the drone operators feel like they're being excluded in some of the things. Certainly when their technology comes on the scene and the regulatory environment drastically changes because of that technology, then it does make the general public feel like, well, these are an issue. If the government has to regulate them this much, then there obviously is something wrong with them. And, you know, that's to be expected, I guess, but it shouldn't be accepted. So we need to work to include everybody, and we need to work towards sensible solutions that, you know, keep the airspace safe. But at the end of the day, model aviation, I think I can safely say, is the safest part of aviation. Just the history that the community as a whole has resulted in no or very few serious incidents in the airspace. And with organizations like AMA, for instance, with our safety programming, if you join the hobby and you follow that safety programming, the continued history of safe operations is going to continue well into the future. So,
yeah. So a couple of things that I want to address in that. First thing, I'm going to go after the easy pickings first. Bringing things back to safety. I mean, this is Drone Safety Awareness Week, right? And so for the FAA, safety is always going to be our number one priority, right? We are in charge of the national airspace system, which includes not just traditional aircraft, commercial aircraft, model aircraft, but also drones, right? So it's a huge spread of aircraft. All of it is wonderful, and I love all of it, but it's also difficult to regulate, right? Every single thing. And I think that's really what we at the FAA are working on right now, understanding all of the different areas of aviation. Like, this is why we're doing Droning On After Dark, so that we can talk to the different segments and make sure that we understand what your concerns are so that we can address them. You had also talked about, you know, barriers to entry. You didn't quite put it that way, but I think that's kind of what you're getting at. And, you know, again, the FAA, we do not want to kill this hobby. And Josh was right on the money. Like, we have a very vested interest in making sure that there are aviators, that there are kids who are interested in aviation, so that they can grow up and come work at the FAA and help us protect the airspace, but also, you know, make sure that we are listening to the communities and working with them. So, Amelia, I don't know, you know, if you've got anything lined up, but if you're looking for a job, try the FAA. But, you know, we do want to make sure that the hobby continues, and that aviation is beloved, right? Like I said before, it is incredibly inspirational. And I'm going to bring it back to that rocket for a second. But, you know, we wouldn't have gotten there if we hadn't done so much in aviation already. And as we are moving into the future, the only way to do that is really together. And, you know, the FAA, we are going off of, you know, like Jay said, the first night, we are going off of things that Congress is giving to us. We are working with security partners who have different concerns than we do. But in all of that, we are trying very hard to make sure that we are listening to you and hearing you, and protecting your hobby. We do not want to squish that out. We don't want to do that. So, you know, you have certainly my assurances that we are doing everything that we can to make sure that your hobby will still be alive for as long as it will be. There is another comment that just popped up in our chat here from Yarsmith, which is a fun name. And they say, I'd like to hear more from Amelia. What are her future plans with aviation and goals? So, Amelia, gonna throw that back to you.
Oh boy. So
putting you on the spot.
All right. So my goal eventually is to I'm still unsure. Being an undergraduate, I might want to be a doctor, physician assistant, maybe get my PhD in chemistry. But as for aviation, if I have spare time, I would love to get my license one day, because we had a friend that he owns a Piper Comanche, if anyone knows what that is.
Yeah.
And he offered to take us my dad and I on a ride on it. And of course, we didn't resist that. We went up and we're at nice cruising speed. And he lets go of the control, says, Amelia, you fly it. And I actually got to fly this really awesome aircraft. And just the idea of owning your own plane and going out on a Sunday to fly it, I love that idea. So one day, hopefully I can get my license, and that's my goal. And get better at RC.
There's a lot of freedom in flying, I think, for all of us. And I think something, really, really interesting and important about modeling and about drones is that it really opens up opportunities to people with disabilities who would not otherwise be able to, get their medical approval to fly a plane. And there's something about flying that's just is really magical. And so being able to share that, I think, is really important. Sorry, Josh, I interrupted.
No, I'm just gushing. And Amelia, promise me you won't let go of that dream. That is something worth pursuing. I promise you that. I was excited about that, but what you just dovetailed into with disabilities and everything, absolutely. It's not just something they can do. It's empowering. It's a service. People want to know that they're capable of something extremely amazing. Flight is extremely amazing. And whether it's a career path, whether it's a release, one thing with FliteTest that we love doing is serving our warriors. A lot of them, when they come back from defending our freedoms, they come back with PTSD. They have a hard time reconnecting with their families. They're injured. Sometimes they can no longer fly, even if they had the ability before, because of the way they served and because of the injuries they took. Model aviation is a healing activity that you can use. And we've done this personally. This is not just a one account thing. This is something we've done regularly. And with our program is when a soldier comes back to their family, they got to reconnect. How do they reconnect in something that is on neutral grounds? They fly airplanes, they build together. I'll share this, and I got permission to share this, but there was a fireman who sadly lost a person he was trying to rescue was a little girl, and that person perished in the fire. And I know I'm getting deep real quick, but Holden, he had a little girl the same age at home. He couldn't look at that little girl. PTSD just riddled him. That caused a separation from his family. That separation then caused him to become suicidal. It was simply watching a YouTube video and then saying, I want to build an airplane. And then sitting down at that table, next thing you know, his daughter's on his lap and he's building with them. It was because they were focusing on that silly little foam board airplane that they were able to reconnect. Well, once he reconnected with his daughter and they had that common activity, he was able to reconnect with his wife. So this hobby is empowering. This hobby is life-changing, not because of the act, but because of what it does in people's lives. And that's definitely something that needs to be protected. That gentleman is happy. He's healthy. His family is reunited. And we have letters from these warriors and flags all over the shop here, people just sharing that testimony. With the FTCA during the comment period, we asked people to share, we call them flight testimonies, and it'll make you cry. From like what you said, Elenia, people wounded, people, elderly people that are looking for something as a way to either contribute or to heal, and it needs to be protected. One thing we mentioned here, and I do believe that the FAA wants to protect the future of flight. They want to protect the airspace with all my heart. AMA and FliteTest, we have a special relationship with our communities, and they're both very different, demographic, age, how they got in the hobby, but we're both gifted in knowing how to engage them, how to inform them, how to equip them to do the hobby safely. One thing I think that would be really beneficial is when CBOs are someday recognized, and I hope that's soon, is to have us work as a liaison to be able to make sure that this hobby is done safely, and then to be able to demonstrate that through our relationship with the FAA. You can only bring change if the people that you have a relationship respect you and listen to you. And I think that the AMA and FliteTest has the respect in the ear of their communities, and it'll be far more effective for new hobbyists to be able to find these CBOs based on the common demographics that they serve, to be able to have that relationship, and then therefore the hobby's protected. But also we can do the things we just talked about. We can change lives, we can empower people, and we can bring healing also.
Yeah, I really like what you've said there. And it ties back into what we've been talking about, right? Community working together.
Yeah.
And I know certainly like from the FAA side, we can use your help.
We want to give it.
I know that these communities, right? So we're talking about the modeling communities, FPV, freestyle, drones, racing. They're generally like, you all police yourself, and you're generally incredibly safe. So, you know, making sure that we're all on the same page, like, of course we can use your help. We would be absolutely thrilled to work with both of you, all of you here, in getting that safety message out, and you know, also receiving messages on our end of concerns. So, you know, we want to work with you. And Tyler, I know I hope that I answered some of the issues that you brought up earlier. Let me know if I didn't.
No, you're fine. You know, it's you mentioned Congress, and certainly we understand that the FAA is acting on mandates from Congress, but this really ties back to someone's question: how can AMA and FliteTest and others work together? And I think that's how it is. We are all stronger as one voice, especially standing up against Congress. So if we're going to work together anywhere, it's putting forward a united front to protect the hobby. We have to protect it ourselves because no one else is going to do that. So I think there's a lot of other places we can certainly work too, but getting that protection in place, I think, is going to be key.
I think this hobby is incredible. I've already, you know, I'm going to have to pick up some goggles and an FPV drone. I guess my next step here is is to find a couple of rubber bands and make myself a little airplane. And then, you know, maybe one day I'll learn how to fly a plane. So I have a really long list of things that I need to do. Thank you all for inspiring me. We've got about 3 minutes left, and I know my alarm is going to go off shortly. But any like final statements from you all before we sign off for tonight?
I just want to, I'm sorry, go ahead, Amelia.
Go ahead, Amelia.
I was just going to go off of what Josh said with that story about that firefighter is, and kind of picking up of what you said about some people getting intimidated to see a community. The thing I love about the model aviation community is people are so friendly. So you don't know who the person's background is, what they're going through, but you can be confident that everyone's just going to be nice to each other. And it's, in some ways, it's kind of like a family, because it's just a bunch of people, once again, bonding over this hobby. And I have several other interests, but this interest is probably the most like tight-knit, inclusive group of people that you'll ever meet. So get in the hobby if anyone is not in it.
Completely agree. I think that's the takeaway. Go out, and if you're already in the hobby, go out and fly. If you're not, go find a place to fly and an aircraft to do it with, and let us worry about the regulation side and all the government stuff. This hobby is great because it's fun, and that's what everybody should focus on.
Love that. So I gonna bring it back a little bit. So Drone Safety Awareness Week, the theme for the weekend is actually Share the Skies, Get Out and Fly. So this is a perfect ending. So let's get out and fly this weekend. And with that, I'm going to start closing everything out. Thank you for those of you who are listening tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, I would like to remind you that Drone Safety Awareness Week is going on all week. So if you want to go to dronesafetyawarenessweek.com, there are events every day that are happening. And we actually have another droning on for you tomorrow night where we're doing a simulated FPV drone race. I will, of course, be there commentating. Is that the right word? That's the right word.
Yeah, that works.
Close enough. Commentate on the race. And there's my alarm.
There it is.
There it is. And if you missed the previous nights, go to the Pilot Institute YouTube channel. I want to thank them for hosting all of these nights. They've been doing a great job. And I want to thank all of you for being here tonight. So Matt, Tyler, Josh, and Amelia, thank you so much for talking to me tonight about model aircraft and RC planes. And have a great night.
Elena.
Thanks, Lane.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Thank you.